You've got the look in your eyes. You're on a mission, burning ambition. You've got your eyes on the prize. You've gotta rise to the challenge. Show 'em what you got. Set them to take what's yours. You are kings now, curse of titans.
Hey everyone, this is Anthony from Tornado Tech Podcast. In our interview series, once again, we're back with a podcast. Made friendly with these guys, found each other on social media. I got to go on their show, and now I'm returning the favor. Going to have them on ours. Going to talk some wrestling, learn about the history of their podcast and how they all became friends. We're missing one of the team, so I got three of the guys on the phone. I got Mike, Lewis, and Alec on the phone. So what's up, guys?
What's going on, Anthony?
Not much. Just hanging out.
Yeah, what's going on?
What's up?
These guys are the members of the Glorified Jobbers Wrestling Podcast. They are an Anchor-affiliated podcast. You could find them on every major platform. I don't even Apple, whatever Apple's is now. It's not iTunes anymore. I think it's just Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the whole nine. Any place you can find podcasts, you can find the Glorified Jobbers Wrestling. So, how did you guys get about and start this whole podcast process?
Yeah, man. So we, Lewis and I had talked about it once. We're like, we did podcasts in the past, just kind of for fun type of thing. And we had talked about it. And we're like, hey, let's do a wrestling podcast. So we spitballed some ideas and touched base with Alex and Alec, and came up with, okay, let's get this started. Especially now with COVID-19 going on, we had really nothing else to do with our days. So we're like, all right, Saturday nights we'll record. And we thought of a name and put a bunch of names out there, and out came the Glorified Jobbers Wrestling Podcast. And we've been rolling now for just about 2 months. So It's going strong so far.
Where do you guys get I know some of your content is from just watching wrestling in general, but do you guys seek out other podcasts for information? Do you guys look at some websites or some Facebook pages?
Yeah, so we go through a lot of Lewis and Alec are big into Wrestle Talk TV, so they could jump on that for a little bit. But yeah, we get a lot of from YouTube videos and YouTube channels. I listen to a little bit of Sam Roberts every time I get a chance, and the Chris Van Vliet podcast are my two kind of go-to wrestling podcasts. So for me, that's where I get some of my source material.
Awesome.
Yeah, and even for me, I mean, not even just with wrestling, a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, whether it's from Barstool Sports or wherever else, you see a lot of the cases where their personalities are just them turned up to 11 when they have a microphone in front of them. So that's at least what I try to bring to it when I'm behind the mic for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely try to do that as well, because one of my favorite, podcast hosts or personalities, I don't know what the technical term is Pat McAfee. I love his show. So it's kind of trying to be that over the top character. And it's, something I learned when I was doing TV stuff at college was it's not always being right. It's just about being the loudest guy sometimes. So, a lot of the times when Michael allows me, I like to go on rants, because as long as I can make those three guys laugh, I think I'm making someone else laugh too.
Yeah. Yeah, I try, I guess. Oh, I have weird shit in my throat. I'm dying here. I might have the Rona. No, yeah. So I wish I had a personality or a character, but I'm legit the same dude all the time. I am just an idiot everywhere I go. For example, I'll go to work, when I used to work at factories and stuff, and I'd hang out with people, and I would say just wacky, wild shit, and they're like, there's no way you're this way around your wife or your girl or on your family. I'm like, boy, you got me pegged wrong.
Yeah, that's how we are, man. We try to do a little goofy stuff and put a little bit of character in there, because we just growing up with wrestling, we all love the characters of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
So we try to turn it up that way and get a little character development. But yeah, what you hear on the show, it's really just us. These are conversations that we go down to the Jersey Shore every year. We do a little vacation every summer. Hopefully we can do it again this year. But yeah, the conversations you hear on the show are no different than the conversations we have sitting in our hotel room.
Yep.
And just talking about wrestling and football and baseball and anything we can.
Yeah, that's the style we try to bring too. It's like if you were to just put a mic at a lunchroom table in middle school when you were all talking wrestling, that's what our podcast tries to recreate.
Absolutely.
Especially not cool in high school. Like we have like the snacks and stuff. We're like, oh, I got this new stack. We just trade snacks and stuff. Like we're like 8-year-olds. It's awesome. So, do you guys when you guys cover stuff, are you covering WWE, AEW, or do you try to tap into some other wrestling promotions as well?
So on the show, we do mostly WWE. Like on our weekend review segments, we cover the 3 televised shows for WWE.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to our second segment, and that varies from week to week. So we'll do like a kayfabe segment, or we'll do, what's going on like on social media and behind the scenes. So like we had one episode where we were talking about, what were we talking about? The superstars going back to NXT from the main roster, like Finn Balor and Charlotte. And in that conversation, not only do we bring up like past WWE things like ECW, but we brought up AEW, and we brought up like Alec has his weekly rants about AEW, and we brought up Luchasaurus, and we can bring up what the Young Bucks are doing. So
you say weekly like it's every day. Like I don't have anything against AEW. I like AEW.
It's getting weekly.
Yeah.
but yeah, the majority of our content is WWE based.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, we do the same. We try to cover the fun. I would love to watch more Impact, but the problem is I don't pay for TV, so I just get the Hulu Live TV, and I don't have the Access channel, so it's really hard for me to watch Impact. But I really like the Impact roster. It just sucks I can't really watch as much.
That's how it is for me as well. Like recently, I'm starting to keep my eye on it a little more, just because it is getting pretty interesting to watch with. Seeing what's going on with Moose bringing back the old title, that belt he brought back is my favorite TNA title.
You should see him in person.
So
He's a large individual.
He's a big dude.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, he when he brought that belt back, it piqued my interest to want to watch more. But same situation, I don't pay for cable. My girlfriend and I just have the streaming services and whatever we can.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just watch, I'll flip on YouTube in the mornings, after it's on. I'll say, okay, what were the highlights from last night from Impact?
Yeah. Every time I hit record on this, my neighbor's dog decides it wants to bark the entire day. That's awesome. I'm excited. So if you can hear that in the background, I apologize. Yeah, so when they came to PPW, I was like, oh man, I'm excited. First off, I was like, man, Impact, because everyone kind of always down talked Impact like it wasn't a good promotion. So I was like, it is what it is. But Johnny Morrison's here, and that's fantastic. I like Morrison, so we went, and then the Impact show went on, and I was like, man, this is a lot of fun. I like their roster. Then they came back the second time, and I was like, holy shit, this is a really good state, a good promotion. Their women's division is good, their men's division is good. I got to see Brian Cage wrestle. Now, the cool thing about Brian Cage is he watched every single match the entire night. Instead of hanging out in the back and, not really paying attention and doing his own thing, he actually stood out there and watched every single person perform that night. It was really, I like those small details when I'm at shows, who's paying attention, who's watching the shows, who's showing support to the other talent, and Brian Cage was definitely that guy that night.
Definitely, yeah. I love knowing and seeing that wrestlers still like wrestling.
Yeah.
And they're not just doing it to get a paycheck or doing it to get their name out there.
They're not the Ultimate Warriors.
Yeah, they thoroughly enjoy the art that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a person growing up that when I watched wrestling, I was strictly a WWF kid. I went to a friend's house one time during the Monday Night Wars, and he was doing the flip back and forth, and I was like, I'm never coming here again if you keep doing this. Like, because if I miss a couple seconds after commercial because you're playing around with the remote control, I'm gonna be pissed. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I was the one who was like, I bit super hard and like, I don't want to watch these has-up wash bins. Like, has-up wash bins, washed-up has-bins couldn't stack up in WWE. Now they're in WCW. So I was like, don't put it on. I don't want to see it. Like, I felt like I was betrayed. Like, especially when Macho Man left, I was like, forget this. I hate it. I'm not watching it. And then everyone come to school like, have you seen Sting? I'm like, oh, you mean Fake Crow? No, I don't care. They're like, what about Goldberg? I'm like, oh, you mean roided up Stone Cold? Don't care. And they're like, you're weird. Like, I was like, I don't know. I never watched it. Didn't care. But as I'm like in my second phase of wrestling fandom, I'm trying to open my mind to other stuff because like I've never watched the New Japan profile, like pay-per-view. I've never really watched Ring of Honor, so I'm starting to dive back in and trying to relearn all that stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of the same way where like growing up I was exclusively WWE, and then I think probably riding around in the car with my dad one day he had Howard Stern on and he had Hulk Hogan on the show and Hulk Hogan was talking about him doing this deal with TNA Impact and I'm like, okay, like I'll tune in, see what's what, and then Ken Anderson shows up who. With the entrance and everything in WWE, I loved. So I was like, okay, like I'm all in. Like I'll watch this if Ken Anderson's going to be here. Then RVD followed, and then you catch on to the guys like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. But I'm similar to you. Like I had never watched. Once everything kind of faded away from that point in Impact, I had never really watched anything outside of WWE again until probably I woke up. Whatever morning that was, and rewatch Jericho Omega at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
And then that kind of got me back into like, okay, there's a world outside of Vince land of wrestling that I can watch.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think AJ's the first guy who opened the door to me telling me there's other wrestling because everyone was like, yo, this AJ dude, if he comes to WWE, it's going to be fantastic. He's so good. And everyone always throws out, like, because I'm a Shawn fan. So when everyone tries to talk wrestling to me and they know I'm a huge Shawn Michaels mark, they're like, this guy's the next Shawn Michaels. I'm like, listen, I heard it with Ziggler. I heard it with this guy. I heard it with that guy. Like, you're going to tell me AJ Styles is the next Shawn Michaels? They're like, he is. And I was like, whatever, dude. So he comes out and I watch him one week. I watch him the next week. And I was like, well, fuck me. This dude's the next Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So,
and I was on, not to cut you off, but I was on Alec about that for probably like 2 or 3 months about it when there was talk of his contract ends at this point with New Japan, and he might be coming to kind of end his career in WWE. And I was like, dude, like you got to catch up on this guy. He's awesome.
Yeah. And then I went back and watched his old stuff, and then I seen guys like Samoa Joe, and then the Young Bucks, and the Bullet Club, and then Finn Balor showed up, and I was like, well, where's he from? They're like, oh, AJ, and he's talking about the club? Well, Finn Balor was like the original dude of it, and I was like, wait, what? And then I just kind of start watching some backlog. I'm like, oh my God, there's some cool stuff out here.
Yeah, like that was kind of my first experience as well. Like AJ Styles, I started watching WWE like in 2007 at the prime of being champion. And then just caught on to TNA. Like I'd been flipping through channels. I think I was in the 5th or 6th grade. And I'm flipping through channels and I saw Kurt Angle. I hit Spike TV. I don't remember the 5th grade but I saw a commercial for TNA Impact on Thursday nights. And Kurt Angle's going to fight AJ Styles or Samoa Joe, whoever he was fighting that night. And I'm like, I've seen this Kurt Angle guy before. He's still going, and he's a world champion. And then in that night, I think he was fighting AJ. I caught AJ Styles, and I was like, there's more here. It's not just John Cena. There's a whole new world out there.
How about that John Cena AJ Styles match, though? Jesus, that was fantastic.
Oh, it was amazing.
It was all of my dreams coming true.
Yes.
Yeah.
We sit there. Lewis and I were younger. We would watch TNA and we're like, imagine if these guys like invaded WWE. Like, what if they just got together and it was like Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Sting, and they just came in and beat the shit out of John Cena. And, it was a little later and I was a little drunker at the time, but it happened.
Well, we got it first with a one-man band. Kevin Owens came in and just beat the shit out of John Cena's first night there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's some awesome, like even like the old ROH stuff, man, is unbelievable. Like they tell me the roster that was there, and I was like, that's everyone I like in NXT, and they're like, oh yeah, and Ring of Honor was a beast place to be at one point in time.
Yeah, definitely with Ed Gargano and Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins.
Well,
we're all there.
What does Gargano as a heel do for you guys? Are you still Gargano guys, or how does that transition work for you guys?
So personally, I was always, when that whole feud was going on with Tommaso, I was always more on the side of Tommaso Ciampa. I just like his character a lot more and his style in the ring. I don't mind Johnny as a heel. I think he could be a good heel, but I'm not the biggest fan yet. I'll preface it with yet of this whole Candice LeRae hype man phase he's going through.
Yeah.
I hope he comes out of that and becomes a wrestling heel and not just cheering on his wife, but there's potential there. I see the potential for me to enjoy it.
Yeah, I have no faith with it. No faith at all.
I probably, because I'm just a huge Johnny Gargano mark, because I've loved him since the Cruiserweight Classic. Anytime you come forward and you show me a guy who's, 5'9" and 170 pounds, that, pretty much is just me in a nutshell. And me and him both love Star Wars. So, anything he could do, I'm a fan of. I have faith in this whole thing just because it feels more natural than the other forced couples things they've done before. And those two look like they're actually enjoying themselves rather than just being a forced angle. So I have some faith in it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, we make this joke that every single time a female turns heel on NXT, they somehow become more attractive. Like,
that's not wrong.
Yeah. Except Candice LeRae. I see her, I'm like, I don't like it. Don't like it at all. The heavy black eye makeup, the white gray hair. I'm not like, how do you take two people who dominated their divisions, turn them heels, and now they don't seem like they're, I mean, him and the Dijakovic, I can't say his freaking name, the guy with the crazy Dijakovic, yeah. That match was fun, but like, I don't feel like Gargano has that. He's not Gargano to me when he's this heel character. Like, they're making him do this chicken shit heel thing, and it's like, I'm the best, but I'm gonna only come out and do stuff with my wife, and then when someone comes down, I run away. Like, you're gonna tell me this is Mr. Takeover, and now he runs away from everybody? Like, I don't know. They gotta change it a little bit. The promos they've been doing, I don't like them at all. Like, the whole cup on the table. It's like, well, are you still hanging on the Chamacho? Are you moving on from it? Like, I don't know. I got to give it more time, but as of right now, I'm not into it.
Yeah, especially because it seems like Ciampa has moved on from it. So
yeah,
he doesn't care about it anymore.
Yeah, even the Cross thing, man. I'm like, I look at Cross and you're trying to build him as your monster, and then like just like to use AEW as an example, you see their big men. It's like, oh, they're legit scary big dudes, and then you see Cross and you're like, I don't know if I buy it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this finisher as a choke, you're a big dude. You should be slamming people with your finisher. Like you German suplex, you German suplex people over the ring. You throw them all over the place, and your finisher's a rear naked choke.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested for Gargano into like at least with Ciampa, like the couple times that they've broken off and then have come back and done rivalries. Most of the time, it's been because Ciampa got hurt, whether it was the knee or the neck or whatever, and Gargano's had 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever, at various points to find something else to do. Mm-hmm. So almost like he's, Adam Cole done that, in different roles, whether it was a heel or a face, but Adam Cole, he's been there. Velveteen Dream faced him. Roderick Strong faced him. So it's like, at a certain point, like, Ciampa, this is all new to him because he's come back, had Goldie for a little bit, but for the most part, has feuded with Johnny Gargano when he's back. So,
yeah, and it's interesting to think how I did the whole thing with them, and they're like, well, how does who wins that feud the first time? Does Ciampa beat him, or does Killer Cross look strong? And everyone's like, oh man, a lot of wrestling fans think just because you're the over big heel, like the Bray Wyatts and stuff, that as soon as you lose, your character's dead. He doesn't have the same oomph, and I'm like, to me, it's not the same to me, because every single superhero movie, you bring in a massive villain, and guess what? By the end of the movie, they lose. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
Yeah.
Your whole thing is it's professional wrestling. It's like Rocky. Most of the time, your face is gonna win, and I don't think it does anything to your heel character. You just slide them in the next role. So I think Ciampa maybe loses the first encounter, but then comes back and beats him at another big show. But it'd be interesting to see how he does with a bigger talent, because I think this is a big test for him, because I think if he does go to the main roster, it's going to see how he translates against a bigger talent, because when he gets there, he's going to definitely be towered over.
Well, and Anthony, you mentioned Gargano and the Dijakovic match. I think we'd be remiss to not let Mike elaborate on our interactions with Dominic Dijakovic.
My relationship with Dominic Dijakovic.
Our relationship. Let's not get it twisted.
Are you guys cousins?
No. So, Alec, what was it? Probably like 2016, 2017 with that show?
Maybe 2016, yeah.
2016, yeah. We go to a show up here at Pocono Summit at the West Junior High School with Northeast Wrestling was the promotion that was running it. And the big ticket names were Mick Foley and the Hardy Boys.
Ooh. And
we bought tickets thinking like, hey, we're going to see the Hardy Boys tag up. Like, we're definitely going to this. And it ended up being 2 singles matches. So Matt went one-on-one with Dijakovic in the main event. He was Donovan Dijak at the time. So he went one-on-one with Dijak in the main event. And the whole show, the 3 of us and their 2 friends from college are just heckling every single person that came through that curtain. Chance Adams is one of the guys that came through that curtain. Trying to think of some of the other names. Brian something. Jeff Hardy went up against him. But yeah.
Brian the King.
Yeah, he was King Brian or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he faced Jeff Hardy. We heckled all the heels. So Dijak comes out. And we weren't cultured in Ring of Honor or New Japan at the time. So we knew Matt Hardy, but we did not know Dijak.
And if we were, we would have noticed the blonde streak in Matt's hair before any of the broken stuff was on TV.
It was he had been recording Broken Matt, but he hadn't aired it yet.
Oh, okay.
So it was in production. So Dijak comes out and we're booing him like you do with heels. And I just stand up on these school bleachers. Nobody else is saying a word. I just get up and yell as loud as I can, "You can't wrestle." The entire gymnasium picks it up with us. And we are chanting at Dijak before the match even gets started, "You can't wrestle." Matt Hardy leans up against, Dijak is laughing at us, and Matt Hardy leans against the ropes, and he points at himself. And we're like, not you, him. And Matt Hardy gets in on the chant and is chanting, "You can't wrestle," at this poor guy. So the following year, I go back. These guys had to stay at school. I go solo the following year, and Cody Rhodes was the big ticket. And the main event was Cody Rhodes versus Dijak. So I go, and I see the card, and I'm like, oh, buddy, I am getting this guy again. So I go in line. I want to do the meet and greet with Cody Rhodes, and it was right after he joined Bullet Club, so I wanted to shake his hand and too sweet the man. So sitting right next to him is Donovan Dijak. So he gives me the dirtiest of looks because he knew exactly who I was. And Cody Rhodes sees this and he goes, "You good, big guy?" And Dijak just shaking his head at me, laughing. And I'm like, yeah, this guy remembers me. Cody Rhodes says to me, what did you do to him? And I told Cody Rhodes the story. And Dijak just gets up and he goes, yeah. And it's fucking worse when Matt Hardy eggs it on. And all the little kids around are dying laughing. And Cody Rhodes just comes up to me and he goes, "Can you do that again?" I'm like, anything for you, my friend. So if Dijak ever ran into me in the street, I am probably getting the worst feast your eyes ever imaginable.
I have a pretty fun one. So we went to the Wilkes-Barre show. I think it was a Raw this time we went to. It was a Raw show. And the Raw happens, they do right after Raw, they do 205 Live. We get an Andy Header chant going. During the Canella match, we get an Andy Header chant going, and then everyone starts filing out because they don't realize it's a dark match after 205 Live. So 205 guys leave the ring, Randy Orton music hits, Randy Orton comes down to the ring, and I'm like, oh, we're getting a Randy Orton dark match, cool. And then Randy Orton's in the ring doing his thing, And this is right when the video came out where his wife was videotaping him from inside the garage, and he was out in the driveway twerking. Do you remember that video?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he is on the turnbuckle, he's doing his Randy Orton pose, and the music, turns off. And I go, Randy, twerk for us. And he looks dead in my eyes, and I'm like, twerk, 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 twerk. And he just looks at me and goes, you motherfucker. Like, right? Just like literally said that to me. And everyone's pointing at me, and they're going, twerk, twerk, twerk. AJ's music hits. I'm like, we're getting AJ versus... Now, this is before they hinted towards Mania. And I was like, we're getting AJ versus Randy Orton in a dark match? And I was like, I'm in. So AJ comes down, his music starts down, they're looking at each other, and we're like, Randy twerk, Randy twerk. We're like, twerk, twerk. And then AJ, it clicks in his head, the video, and he starts laughing, and he, like, they were about to like lock up, and then they laughed, and then they locked up, and we're still chanting it, and they break the lock, and AJ like looks over at us, and he just backs up into the corner and puts his arms up and just points at Randy like, you have to do it. So Randy just like walks over, and he grabs the top rope and just starts popping his ass. Right? And then the whole play, like, there was not many people in there, but the whole place, like, the people who were there start losing it. So he twerks a little bit, and then he just looks right at me and just shakes his head, and then they lock up again, and we're like, your turn, AJ. Your turn, AJ. And then Randy breaks, and he steps back in the corner, and he points at AJ, and AJ's like, there's no chance, right? So then AJ goes like, I'm not doing it. So then AJ looks, and he gives like one quick twerk, and then everyone pops again, and then we start. They brought the lock up again, and Mike Chioda, how do you say his last name?
Chioda.
Mike Chioda is the ref, and we're like, Chioda. And then both of them break again, go to each corner, and point at Mike like, now it's your turn. And Mike's like, no, and he's like, you could tell in his earpiece, like, we gotta go. And they're like, no, twerk. So he just goes, he just runs over to the corner, stands in the corner, and does like a Stone Cold pose. And we're like, boo, twerk. And he's like, no, let's go. And then they just start wrestling. But every single time Randy had AJ in like a move, like he did his second rope drop DDT, he like held AJ and he looked over at me and twerked again and then dropped AJ on his head. Like,
oh man!
Yeah, so we had AJ and Randy Orton in a twerk battle during a dark match.
What about that show?
It's on YouTube.
Were you sitting like kind of right behind the commentary table? For
exactly, right behind the commentary table. Yep.
Lewis and I were at that show. We were there for that dark match.
Yeah, yep, that was us.
We were rolling that entire time. We're like, these guys down there egging them on. They're going for it.
Yep, that was 100% us. That was us, right behind the commentary table. Yep.
There was another one. I forget what it was, Mike, but we went to a live show up at Wilkes-Barre, and it was the Miz Taraj at the time. So Miz, Axel, and Dallas against, I think it might have been Reigns, Seth, and Jason Jordan.
It was the Shield, but instead of Ambrose, it was Jason Jordan.
And the whole Wilkes-Barre Arena just starts, we want Bo. And Miz is like waiting on it. He's like going to the corner, and then he hit Axel. And people are like, I've never heard anyone root for Bo Dallas, yet here we are at a live show.
Yeah, that's the only glory thing I had at a WWE show. I mean, independent shows I heckle all the time and get some good chants.
That's one of the best parts of it.
Yeah, I love it. I know when the North wrestled from Impact, we chanted a USA chant, and then we start chanting "Build That Wall." And then they're like, and a lot of people around us are like, we don't get it. I'm like, they're from Canada. And they're like, oh, that's funny. That's really funny. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, we actually went to, so you mentioned before the TNA show that came to the Scranton Wilkes-Barre area. Was that at Crunch Fitness by chance? Was that show?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think, so one show, a TNA show came to, like that Hazelton, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area, and was it
in the mall, the Steamtown Mall?
I think so.
I think it was in the Steamtown Mall because that was PPW's Part 2 show. I didn't get to go to that one.
Okay, yeah. So they were a couple of independent guys from around the area came and wrestled that show, and one of the guys I watched at a local promotion here, Work Rate Entertainment. He was Ricky Martinez at the time. That was Joey Martinez. Mm-hmm. But he wrestled on that card. So it was just like an X Division match. I think he was putting another guy over. He took the pin. And the next Saturday, they're cutting a promo. It was Kakoa and him cutting a promo for a match they had coming up. They were doing like a contract signing, and they're talking about like the accomplishments they have made. And Kakoa just did Evolve, and Martinez just did Impact. So he's like, bless you. He goes, while you've been doing all this stuff, I've been going all around the country making impacts. And I just start letting him have it. I was just like, oh, you got to plug the big promotions here.
Yeah. Actually, I do have one more funny chant one. I just remember it wasn't Kakoa, but it was Pandora. It's Sammy Pandora,
Okay.
right? So Sammy Pandora is wrestling in a fire hall in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, and she's wrestling. I don't remember the women's. I think it was like Jax or something, but she was a black female. And once again, I always root for the heels, so it was nothing against Sammy. I root against heels. Sammy's a sweetheart. She's a really nice girl. So she comes down to like, and I this is my, like I said, I'm brand new to the indie scene, don't know anybody. So like, and Sammy Pandora, and I'm like, Pandora, okay. So she comes out, then the heel comes out, and she's like, boo, and I'm like clapping for her, and she goes, don't you clap for me, and I was like, I'm gonna clap, right? So the match starts going, and I start chanting, break her box, right? There was beer involved.
No.
So the girl like whispers in Sammy's ear. Irish whips her into the corner, beats her down a little bit, throws one leg over the one rope, throws the other leg over the other rope, and gives her a Shattered Dreams.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then after the show, I was like, I'm so sorry, I was drunk. And they're like, no, that's our favorite part of the show is when we have people like you here just doing stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. When they get that crowd interaction in there, like they'll change everything they're planning based off like what one guy is chanting.
Yeah.
That's
The whole place starts
fun.
chanting "Break the box," and then all the kids are like, we don't. The kids are chanting and they're like, we don't know what we're saying.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that's probably my best indie heckle stories. Watch
Man.
heckling Sammy into getting a Shattered Dreams.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching him. Kakoa. He used to like deliver like his shoot job. I guess he used to do something. He used to drop off stuff at my wife's job, and then we're watching Monday Night Raw, and this is when he was like a security guard on the one Raw, and I think Ronda Rousey hip tossed him, and she goes, I know him. He comes to my job all the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't wait to see him so I can say to him like, yo, Ronda Rousey hip tossed you. And I don't think he does that job anymore. He doesn't go there because she'd never get a chance to be like, I seen Ronda Rousey throw you the other night. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I had at my old job, I was trying to do some business with him to do a show. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out, but I ended up speaking aloud and become good friends with him. He's a really good guy.
Yeah.
But he came in for my first meeting with him. I'm sitting in my office, and he comes in, he sits down, we're just shooting the shit. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, this dude looks familiar. Like, I've seen him on WWE before.
Mm-hmm.
He's never been in the ring, though, so I don't know where I know him from. And he goes, you've seen me before, haven't you? Yeah, well, I was at your show last week, but like now that I'm seeing it up close, like I know you from somewhere. And he goes, so I was on Raw about a year ago. I was a security guard for Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella when they were feuding before Evolution. And I'm like, that's it. And he goes, you don't remember what happened? I said, like, you got judo tossed by Ronda Rousey when she was trying to make a beeline for Nikki Bella at the top of the stage. And he goes, yes. And here's what everybody doesn't know. She threw me the wrong way, so I was totally thrown for a loop. And I'm like, that is the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to get hip tossed by anybody, it's got to be Ronda. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, he said that was the worst part. He goes, like, they said, like, okay, like, you probably the best one to do this, so you're going to get hip tossed by Ronda Rousey. And he's like, yeah, I knew that was going to come.
I think she hip tossed him more towards the barrier than she did to the center of the ramp. Yeah.
Yes. She was supposed to throw him towards the ramp. According to what the story he told me, she was supposed to throw him more towards the ramp. But when she approached him, she felt that it was better to grab him the way that she did as opposed to the way that Vince wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So she just grabbed him. I believe she ended up grabbing him with the right arm instead of the left and threw him, and he almost hit the barricade.
Mm-hmm.
And when they went backstage, he said he was like, she was so apologetic, and he goes, no, it was awesome.
The only way it could have been better is if you armbarred me.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So, this will probably air not this week. So I think we have probably the week after or something like that. So I don't want to talk too much stuff what's going on now because I think by the time it'll air, it might be irrelevant. But what are some future plans that you guys have for Glorified Jobbers when it comes to your streaming service or your platform?
So yeah, by the time you're hearing it, we're gonna have a couple more interviews out there. We have a couple that are just kind of waiting in the weeds that we're trying to figure out some dates for and get them scheduled. But yeah, we got a lot of good shows coming up. We're gonna do. We've gotten in the trend of right before pay-per-views, we're doing our pay-per-view preview episodes. So the next one will be for Takeover in Your House, and then we'll do Backlash the following week. But yeah, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up, a lot of good interviews. We're going to try to get some like independent wrestlers and some commentators. So if you're tuning into the Glorified Jobbers Wrestling Podcast, there's a lot of cool stuff coming up that you're going to want to catch.
Nice. If you're doing prediction shows, you should check it Pro Wrestling Scorecards.
Pro Wrestling, is that website out there?
It's a website, yeah, and you can do it digitally as well. So if you go to digital.prowrestlingscorecards, it's a company out of California. Really, really nice guys. I actually interviewed the guy who created it, and what it does is kind of, you know how they have the football pick'ems where you pick like the winner and at the over or under points. Well, this guy makes those cards, but for wrestling pay-per-view. So like for example, it'll be like AJ versus Randy. How many finishers, how many false finishes, will the match go over a certain time, or what do you think the match time is? And like they'll throw in a weird thing like chair shots, and then you pick the winner, so you get 5 points per winner, and then each subcategory you can get 3 points. But if it's a number one, so like if you say 3 finishers and it's plus or minus 1, so you can get a point either way. But if you hit it dead on, you get 2 points, like double the points. So and then what we do is on our podcast is we compete against each other, and we find out who does the best. So if you guys get into that, we can have like a little friendly jobbers versus tornado tag pick'ems.
Yo, you're on for that one. You're on.
I was going to say the rest of the jobbers need to get some help because I dusted them for Money in the Bank.
You won by a half a point. I sucked.
Mike got crushed. You won by half a point knowing that MVP wasn't going to be involved.
So we did the scoring. We did 1 point. We just did the winners of the matches.
Yeah.
And we just did 1 point out of the total 8 matches. And we got to the R-Truth MVP match. And Alex, myself, and Alec all picked R-Truth. And Lewis, being the person that he is, picks MVP. So when Bobby Lashley subbed in for him and won, I'm like, you know what? I'll be generous. I'll give him half a point. And then when I did the math on it, I did him first, and he had 4.5 out of 8. And it was 4. And I'm like, God damn it. He had to win by a half a point.
Yeah. Yeah, with the cards, we were doing them, just printing them out and doing them on there. So we were like, man, like out of a possible 198 points, we're scoring like 95 or 92. So like we're terrible at this. So then they come up and they do this digital thing. So like most of their Patreons are on this digital app, and it shows you where everyone ranks on the digital. And like our podcast, the first couple months was like 4 of us were in the top 10, and like 2 of us won it. Like we've had people in our podcast team like win the whole thing, and it's just like we're not as bad as we thought we were. We thought we were terrible. We were just finishing them on the paper, but yeah, really, really cool guys. You check them out, Pro Wrestling Scorecards, and like I said, you can go I think they might have digital open, like where everyone can do it. So you have to go to the thing and then go digital and sign up for it. But it's really, really fun.
Definitely, we have to check that one out.
Perfect. Yeah.
For Backlash and Takeover.
Yeah. So who are some interviews that you guys are looking to do, or maybe some dream interviews you want to get?
Yeah, so like right now we have one lined up. Our actually next episode coming out, it'll be with Andy Malafarina. He's a commentator for Work Rate Entertainment. A good buddy of mine that I met through going to those shows. So got him in the chamber lined up, ready to go. We have a couple of indie guys that Alex is getting scheduled for us. He didn't tell us the names of those guys yet, but couple guys we can talk about, like in-ring experience. I'm building up the nerve to ask Takoa if he wants to come on the show. So that could be coming up in the next couple months or so. If we get to that point, though, for me at least, I don't know about these guys, but for me, a dream interview would be trying to get like an AJ Styles or an Adam Cole to give us on the show. We can ask them a few questions. Have a conversation with them.
They're tough because I think like under contract, I don't know if they're allowed to do it they'd be hard.
Yeah, I feel like the better bet would be I try to get somebody from like a TNA or Ring of Honor.
I reached out to a guy I met at an indie show, and I said, "Hey man, I'd love you to come on the podcast." And he was not hot, but he was in the talks, probably for not the right reasons. And when I messaged him, his response back to me was $50 to $100. And I was like, well, listen, man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you responding, but I'm not going to pay for you to talk to me. Like, if it's either you want to do it or you don't want to do it. You know what I mean? And I respect your hustle. You're trying to make money. I get it. But I work a paycheck-to-paycheck job, and I'm not going to dump $50 for a conversation, and then halfway through you're like, not into it, and then I lose my money, you know? So that happens sometimes, too, when you reach out to people. But that's why, for the most part, like, if I can talk to people, cool. Like, but when I go to shows, like, and there's somebody like of name there, I don't bother them, only because like it's just not. But I'm more into like the indie scene, so most of my interviews you're gonna see on my channel are all gonna be indie guys. Our promotions or our podcasts, because I want to put over people that are on their ups, trying to make it, trying to do their thing.
Also for me too. I mean, Mike, you mentioned getting some guys that and Alec as well. As me kind of heading up the Twitter push at jobbers_podcast, I've been to the minute. Every time Orange Cassidy puts out a tweet, I'm replying to it. I will eventually get through to him.
Nice.
No, I'd love to have Orange Cassidy on the podcast, but I just know that he's going to be like, so what got you into wrestling? I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I would want.
Yeah. I would have had. I don't know if I would have had an interview. What I would have been able. I was on pace to meeting Joey Ryan at a show, and like I said, I don't know if I would have got an interview or anything, but I definitely got to meet him and talk to him and stuff. But that would have been a cool one, but it just never panned out.
That would be a good one. Joey Ryan's a character too.
He was supposed to be at High Tension Wrestling. And at High Tension, I'm going to be the pre-show, post-show guy. That's going to be like my role there, where I like kind of,
nice.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
very nice.
It just didn't work out that way, but it happens. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll tell you what though, if you ever need help getting people, I can try to do my best. I know like a lot of the PPW guys are really good. You could reach out to them. If you ever see me interview a guy, don't feel free to shoot him a message like, hey, heard your interview on Tornado Tag. Would you be interested in doing ours? 9 times out of 10, they're cool people. They'll do it.
Definitely.
Would you know that?
I listened to your interview.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. You were breaking up there.
I listened to your interview last week that he dropped with Johnny Moran.
Yeah.
And
cool dude.
I like I told you when you were on our show, I'd seen Johnny Moran as a manager for John West at a work rate show. And just jump back to the heckling here real quick. I had heckled Johnny Moran at a show. Because every time John West wrestles, I call him Big Cass. And you feisty, you know exactly what I mean. Yeah, I call him Big Cass. So the one time I'm sitting front row and he comes my way and I call him Big Cass. And he stops dead in his tracks, looks at me and goes, I'm a more in shape Big Cass. And I looked at him like, you're not wrong, man. Like, good for you.
Yeah.
So the next month he comes back and he has Johnny Moran with him as his manager. So he comes out, he's cutting a promo, he's working a guy that just did his first match. Johnny Moran didn't say a word. And John West just goes like, I am the best guy in this company. I'm the most feared. Just listed off all these adjectives. And he goes, he is the roughest, toughest guy you're ever going to see at ringside. He is my best friend. He is my handler. And I just yelled as loud as I could, you're Enzo Amore. And he dropped the microphone, like, start the damn match, and the next guy out. He did not want to talk anymore.
Yeah. Your mic's a little choppy right now. I don't know what's going on that end. It was cutting in and out. That's all right. Not your fault.
Probably my internet connection.
Part of the COVID thing and struggle is everybody in the world is on the internet right now, so it's tough to get a reliable source. Yeah, Johnny's a good dude. Another really cool guy at PPW and has a long history of wrestling. That's a great conversation. Is Deshaun Pratt. Deshaun Pratt used to wrestle in another guy to keep an eye on. He used to wrestle for Chikara. He was part of the very first internet breaking video for wrestling. One of the most like watched videos. It's called "The Most Illegal Move You'll Ever See in Professional Wrestling." Have you ever seen that video?
I've not. Now I'm gonna have to check it out.
So it's this is when he was wrestling at Chikara and he wore a mask and they were part of this team, and their thing was the one guy picked the other guy up like a wheelbarrow and he moved like a snake and he hypnotized the two guys and then brought breakdance floors in the ring and they had a breakdance competition and then they hypnotized the locker room and then guys come out of the locker room start dancing too and it turned into this giant like DDT moment like and everyone's dancing and stuff. But yeah, Deshaun Pratt was part of that back in Chikara days. Now, cool thing too is like I don't know if you're aware of is Orange Cassidy used to be part of Chikara.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he used to be Fire Ant. Yep. A lot of big names came out of Chikara as well. That's where Andy Hedder trained, was Chikara.
Not bad.
Yeah.
It's been a good spot because, like you said, I've heard of some of the big names that have come out of there. But I heard of Fire Ant. I never knew it was Orange Cassidy.
Yep.
Never. Well,
they changed characters a lot, but Orange Cassidy was Fire Ant at one point in time.
Oh, changed the they shuffled around the guys who were in the mask too.
Yeah. Let me pull it up. Chikara. Yeah, a lot of cool. I believe Fire Ant had I never really watched that I didn't really watch it as much, but a lot of the guys that came out of there, I think Fire Ant had his own little stable, and a lot of those guys are in WWE right now. Let me see here. I don't know if it's going to tell you like who became what, but yeah, Chikara was a cool little promotion. They do a lot of gimmicky, crazy stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure how I would find that. Oh, here you go. So, Orange Cassidy was in there. Ophidian, that was one of the guys who did the thing with Deshaun Pratt. But yeah, a lot of cool names. Another one out of your area too is Adina Steele. She's been really killing it. Female wrestler in the area. Yeah, a lot. Trajan Horn. We have a guy out of Minersville who's been killing it on the indie scene. Tony Deppen. He's if anything, if anyone's going to be probably another name coming out of the area, it's going to probably be him. I would check him out. He wrestles GCW, and he just got to wrestle. He wrestled Pentagon. He's wrestled Shad, Gaspar that just passed away. He wrestled Orange Cassidy. He's wrestled. Trying to think of some other names there, but like he was. Oh, remember the guy who had no legs? That was in the AEW.
Zach Gowen.
Yes. Yeah.
No Legs got found. Like they found No Legs because he wrestled a Joey Janela show the weekend of WrestleMania, and he wrestled Tony Deppen, and the match was fantastic. You know, because Tony Deppen's fantastic as well. And No Legs got invited to the AEW pay-per-view.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean,
Nice.
Deppen's like right there, but he's a guy from our area, from like the Pennsylvania area, that definitely you should have on your radar and keep an eye on.
Let's check them out.
Yeah. So, is anything in closing you guys want to bring up or talk about before we let you go here?
Yes. So yeah, we'll just plug all of our stuff because that's the easiest way to go about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got our social media. Lewis had already mentioned Twitter. We're at Discord Podcast. Instagram, we're at glorified_jobbers. We have our email. We opened up if any listeners want to shoot an email over. We're glorifiedjobberspod@gmail.com. Then we have our Teespring. If you want to buy some merch, we have some T-shirts, some phone cases, anything that the app lets us get on the free run of it.
Yep.
We're putting out there. So yeah, any way you want to reach out and give us a follow, share us, get our name out there. 'Cause we're just starting out, and the more notoriety we get, the more publicity we get, the better, and more listeners we can get to the show.
I actually just unlocked all the items on Teespring, but the problem is you know how you go to the designer and you just drop and drag your logo?
Yeah.
The new items you can't do that with yet, so you have to do this other convoluted way of making the merch, and I'm like, I have 5 shows and 5 different logos, and some show logos have different. I'm not going through this whole process, so I'm just like, I'm going to wait. I'm waiting. But yeah, I finally unlocked it all. I can't wait for that stuff.
That's like what I want to do, because like I just bought a T-shirt the other day from our store just so I can finally have some merch from our stuff. and I looked at some of the lock stuff, and the hats are on there. And Lewis
hats,
never
pins,
leaves,
pop sockets.
Lewis never leaves the house without a hat on.
Yep.
So I'm like, I got to figure out a way to get these hats going.
When we end here, I'll give you a little tip. That's what I do.
Definitely.
Yeah. I'll definitely check it out. Maybe when this is all over, we should definitely all meet up and we'll come to one of your shows up in your way, and then you come down to like a PPW show. We'll do some cool stuff.
Sounds good, man. I'll do that.
Sounds good. I like that.
Awesome. Yeah, and send me all your links, and we'll make sure that's in the links below so people can go check it out. But definitely go check out the Glorify. What day do you guys drop your new episodes?
Saturday. It's usually either Saturday nights or a Sunday morning. We record Saturdays. So if you check all your podcast platforms Sunday morning, it'll definitely be on there.
There you go. Every you can check them out usually every Sunday on your podcast platform, and go follow them on social media and hit the guys up. They're doing big things. They're making great content, and go give them that support. We'll see you guys next time on Tornado Tag Podcast, and we're out. Here's some no rain checks.